This section will cover the self-disassembly process of the CK2000 Kobelco crane. First, place the machine on a firm, level supporting surface. Lower the block and ball on the ground and lower the boom close to the ground. It will now be necessary to change the Lmi setting into the setup mode. This is done by pushing the button on the Lmi controller showing the boom being taken apart and hold it for 3 seconds. This will allow all necessary control functions to operate while the boom angle is below 15 degrees. Now remove the cable and wedge sockets and disassemble them. Remove anti-2 block weights and limit switches from the load cable, and unreeve the hoist cable from the load block. Wind up the anti-2 block cable on the reel at the boom base section. Reinstall all bypass plugs at the cable ends and at the cable reel. Slowly wind hoist cable while keeping the wire rope tight on the drum. Secure the hoist cables to the drum so the cable does not become loose. Raise the spreader guides on the boom base up to the working position. Then lower the boom hoist wire rope to set the spreader into the spreader guide and secure it with the pins. Tighten the boom hoist wire rope to remove the load from the bottom pins on the boom base section. Then remove the bottom connecting pins first. Both ends of these pins are tapered, so the pins can be removed while standing safely outside of the boom. It is important that you stand clear when removing any boom connecting pins, because it is possible for the boom to suddenly shift as they are being removed. Now lower the boom down onto wooden blocking. Remove the top boom connecting pins and disconnect the guide cables at the spreader. Now we're able to back the crane away from the boom. Next, we'll demonstrate using the crane for self-disassembly. At this point, we'll need to remove the rear main counterweights. Disconnect the swing alarm and flasher harness from machine to counterweights. First, turn off the engine and connect the counterweight cylinder control box to the receptacle on the right side of the crane. Move the 3-way switch into the gantry tag line position. Start the engine, and using the hand throttle, set the engine RPM to about 1000 RPMs. Turn on the power switch on the control box and fully raise both of the counterweight cylinders. Remove the main mounting pin spring clips and slide the main mounting pins out to the release position. A special tool is provided to allow this to be done while standing away from the counterweight assembly. Now move both the left and right cylinder control switches to the down position. The cylinders work independently, so the operator can keep the counterweight assembly level while lowering. Lower the counterweight assembly down and set it on a firm supporting surface. Disconnect the counterweight linkage and place it into the storage position. We'll now install a single sheave block to the boom base. Lower the boom base section near the block being used for self-erection. You'll need to use the hoist cable from the front drum. Feed the cable through the top and bottom sheave on the boom base. Then run the cable through the load block and install the weight for the anti-2 block system. And install the wedge socket and clamps on the cable end. Pin the wedge socket to the mounting location. Install the limit switch and connect the anti-2 block weight. Unwind the cable as needed and connect it to the mount on the boom base. Then connect the wire end to the limit switch. Then make the final connection at the reel. The anti-2 block operation can now be checked by pulling the limit switch by hand and watching for the hook over hoist trouble code on the Lmi warning bar to discontinue. Now raise the boom up to the working position. The Lmi will now need to be programmed into the self-removal mode. To do this, first push the menu button, then scroll to Settings and push Set. Then select the setting of the crane posture screen and push Set. Then go to Self-Removal mode and push Set. Use the right arrow button and choose 2 parts of line, and again push Set. The Lmi will automatically go into self-removal mode. At this point, the crane may be used as needed to disassemble the boom and counterweights, as well as make them ready for shipment. Do not lift more than 2 weights at a time. After we have positioned boom and counterweight pieces, we're now ready to remove the track frames. This process must be done on very firm ground or on top of steel plates. Turn off the engine and disconnect the hydraulic lines from the base machine to the track frames. The 2 cables to operate the remote box for the translifters will now need to be connected. Connect one end of the power supply cable to the receptacle on the right side of the upper structure and the other end to the lower switch box located in the main car body of the machine. Then connect the control box cable to the switch box. We'll now move the translifter swing arms into the working position. First, remove the swing arm locking pins on each of the translifter swing arms and place them into the empty hole next to it. Swing the translifter arms out to the working position and the locking pins will fall into place. Make sure all 4 locking pins are fully inserted and spring pins are installed on the bottom side of the locking pins. Install the floats on the bottom of each translifter and secure with locking pins. Now remove the hoses that are stored in the front and rear of the car body frame compartments. These are the hydraulic hoses that control the main track pin cylinder. Connect these hoses to the quick disconnect fittings on the track frame. Start the engine and set the speed to approximately 1000 RPMs. Move the hydraulic selector switch located on the left side panel inside the cab to the translifter position. Turn the power switch on the control box to the on position. The 4 outside switches on the control box control the 4 individual translifter jacks. Make sure that the 4 floats stay firmly on the ground during the lifting procedure. We're now ready to lower the translifter jacks and raise the machine enough for the track frames to clear the ground. Extend both rear cylinders up about 3 inches and then level the machine by extending the front cylinders the same distance. Make adjustments as needed to keep the machine level from side to side. A level is mounted on the car body of the machine as an aid to keep the machine level. Continue this process until both track frames are completely clear of the ground. We are now able to remove the track frame assemblies from the base machine. The total weight of each track frame is 40,800 pounds. Hook the 4-leg sling shackled to the 4 lifting eyes on the track frames. Install the softeners to protect the slings and the track pads. Now slowly lift the track frame until the small gap between the track frame and the main frame on the base machine closes. Now remove the smaller top mounting pins by hand. Then move the selector switch for the main track frame mounting pins to the retract position. These are the 2 inside switches on the control box. Once these pins are fully retracted, the track frame will be free from the base machine. Now remove the main pin hydraulic hoses from the track frame. It may be necessary to relieve the pressure from the hydraulic lines. Do this by quickly pushing the control switch in the extend position. These same hoses are also used for the opposite track frame. Disconnect the power cord so it will not be damaged when the operator swings the upper structure. A 360-degree swing is not allowed while one track frame is installed. Do not swing the center of the track frame past the translifter cylinders on the same side that it was removed from. Please refer to the operator's manual for detailed instructions. The working radius with the track frame is about 16 feet. Place the track frame on the ground or on the bed of the transport truck. Now swing the upper structure around and remove the other track in the same manner. A 360-degree swing is allowed with the opposite track removed within the 16-foot radius. After the second track frame is removed, lower the machine to the ground and level as needed with translifters. At this point, use the boom base to remove the car body counterweights. Each car body weight assembly is 22,020 pounds, so use suitable rigging. Then lower the counterweight brackets down to the transport position. The self-assembly block may remain on the base if needed at the crane's next destination. To remove the self-assembly block from the boom base, disconnect the limit switch. Roll the anti-tube block cable onto the reel and connect the bypass plug on the cable from the machine to the reel. Remove the wedge socket and wind the cable on the drum. Secure the cable to the drums so it does not become loose during transport. The base machine is now ready to load onto the transport truck. The translifters will raise the machine up 42 inches so the trailer is able to back under for transport. Lower the machine onto the trailer with translifters by slowly lowering the rear, then front translifters 2 at a time, making sure to keep the machine level. After the load is removed from the floats, remove the locking pins and slide float away from the cylinder. Then fully raise the cylinders. Turn off the engine and disconnect the control box cables and store the control box in the compartment behind the seat. Swing all 4 of the translifter arms into the transport position and secure in place with the locking pins. Now, lower the boom base section to secure on the transport truck. The final step will be to lower the gantry assembly down to the transport position. Place the selector switch in the cab to the gantry tagline position. Then operate the gantry cylinder control switch as needed to remove the tension from the tension member locking pins. Remove both pins and store them in the brackets. Now lower the gantry cylinders. At the same time, lower the boom hoist cable as needed to lower the gantry. Be careful not to allow too much slack in the cable or let it become loose on the drum. Place all mechanical drum locks into the lock positions and engage the swing house lock. The machine is now ready for transport. In this configuration, the total weight of the machine is 95,800 pounds.